Jet Set Radio FÜCKS. Me up every time I play it. Don't get me wrong, I'm really into this game, and its sequel, Jet Set Radio Future. They're great games with phenomenal presentation, but damn, they're also infuriating. At the very least, for someone like me who is lacking in free time and patience. I would just go around my house stomping in frustration during some of the more infuriating levels, only to continue playing the game 15 minutes later. Putting the rant aside for now, Jet Set Radio was originally released for the Dreamcast in year 2000 by Smilebit and re-released for newer consoles and PC in 2012 by Blitworks. That logo gets me every time. Blit. It is an arcade game about grinding rails with your roller skates and spraying graffiti, which doesn't immediately seem like my kind of game, but it's also as much of a statement as it is a game. Even if fairly minimal, the game's plot revolves around an almost dystopian yet colorful setting where law enforcement is highly militarized and brutal, willing to do things as ridiculous as sending tanks and helicopters to stop the free-thinking, rap-spitting, graffiti-doodling punks. Completely unbelievable, right? And it's all presented using timeless stylized graphics and a genius soundtrack by the wonderful Hideki Naganumahei.
Ouch, that joke actually hurts.
Over the years, the game has become a highly influential cult classic, which makes me wonder why am I even bothering making this video being way late to the party. There are already plenty of great videos about the game and I doubt I could add much new. But I mean, I've been dabbling in metal, goth, punk subcultures, why not collect them all? And Jet Set Radio was a nice gateway for me to see the appeal of the whole hip-hop and skater scene. I mean, the game ended up influencing acts like Machine Girl, so it's gotta be decent. So, the first Jet Set is very straightforward linear game. You get a mission, you pick a character, and do a mission. The garage where you pick a character that also serves as a main menu is also brilliant, by the way. You can see all the unlocked characters vibing and the one that you pick does a cool dance. And the soundtrack there is just the best. Humming the bass line. Well, I'm basting the hum line. Very catchy. There are a few types of missions. The main one is to spray graffitis within a time limit, while being chased by progressively growing ranks of the militarized police or the murderous yakuza. Aside from the anti-punks, there are also rival gangs that you have to take down by spraying their backs in a chase. And then there are some rival showdowns that offer the player some optional and usually pretty tricky challenges, that upon completion unlock the challenger as a playable character. Goddamn fuck yo-yo, I hated this race so much! The way the game works is relatively simple controls wise, but it tends to be like that with highly skill-based games, and I suck bad at those. I'm more of a knowledgeable strategist type. You've got your left analog stick to move your character, you've got your jump, and you have the spraying mechanic where you press a button and then have to make combos with your analog stick. You can jump on rails, billboards, power lines, and all sorts of things to perform tricks and get to otherwise inaccessible places. Doing tricks is also important to get the much needed speed. I would honestly struggle to give any pro strats on this, because I suck at the game. It makes me feel like a complete pleb seeing full walkthroughs of the game that are less than 3 hours long, when it took me around 12 hours just to beat the game once. And even after beating the game I just thought, finally I don't have to do this anymore in order not to feel guilty about making fan art of a game I haven't even completed. I might be half joking, but honestly, I really played the game for the visuals and the music. After experimenting with some shaders, I even want to make some 3D OCs and stuff. And have I mentioned that the music fucks? I might have not yet, so just so you know, the music fucks. Aside from humming the bass line, Magical Girl was one of my absolute favorite tracks. I'm absolutely a fan of the fact that there are also lyrics in some of these songs, even if they're mostly sampled voice lines. They really liven up the game. There would be cases where a song would sound like complete gibberish, but still be cool. I mean, what is emergency was service supposed to mean?
It's not even proper English.
I guess I'm not the one to point it out though, so I'll just say that the song still fucks. You know what also fucks? The grind city levels that are supposed to take place in the US of A instead of Japan, but
Those are fucking the bad way.
they seem to be quite a bit trickier than the rest, with tighter time limits. It was one of the biggest roadblocks for me, but they had friggin' drop zombie in them. The big nasty realization came to me after I beat the game though. I thought, how come I haven't unlocked all the characters yet after having beaten the final boss? Turns out that in order to unlock additional characters, I need to complete all the levels in the highest Jet rating. It would seem pretty natural in an arcade game, but here's the catch. You cannot go back to replay previously completed levels. There is no button to restart a level either, and if you want to redo levels you previously completed but didn't get a high enough score, you need to finish the whole game and start it from the beginning again.
I just fucking lied. You can actually retry after completing the level, but before exiting it after you get the rating. Also, I'm locked in the basement. Send help.
I'm not sure how it is on the other platforms, but that's how it is on PC. And I would be happy just beating a level, because they're pretty tricky. I couldn't be bothered looking up required scores online and then Alt F4ing the game before the level ends in case I don't do good enough in a game I can barely beat to begin with. See these nipples I have on my controller's analog sticks? Well, just trying to play the game like a normal person ended up in all the nipples ripping off from the left one. Even after Jet Set Radio pissed me off quite a bit, I still wanted more of those funky vibes. And that's where Jet Set Radio Future comes in. Using that song for the introduction is obligatory, even if overdone. Jet Set Radio Future was released in 2002 for the original Xbox, and serves more like a reimagining of the first game rather than a sequel, a bit like how Pathologic 2 is to Pathologic 1. It's more or less the same characters, same story beats, but the mechanics, challenges and locations are remade from the ground up. Quick heads up, my footage might look slightly different from how the game was originally, because I don't own the original Xbox. I had to resort to playing the game through an emulator, but hey, it's fairly stable and I can play in 1080p widescreen. Although the emulator was somewhat tricky to get running and the graffiti decals are broken. Also trying to enter the graffiti menu crashes the game for me. Gameplay wise, Jet Set Radio Future is a definitive upgrade to its predecessor, but not without its own flaws either. First, the overall movement felt a lot more smooth and satisfying. If in Jet Set Radio I felt clunky and struggled simply landing on rails often, in Jet Set Radio Future I was actually pulling off stunts. The game structure was redone too, moving from linear isolated levels to semi-open world. While I'm not necessarily huge about open worlds, it felt very appropriate in a game where you have to go around the city spraying graffiti. It's still divided into different districts, but each of them would feel unique both visually and in the challenges they offer. Occasionally it can become a bit confusing trying to find where the next story objective is, but it's a world that's pretty fun to explore. The skater's gear was also upgraded in this game, so now they can also cling to and grind up light poles and such, as well as use spray cans as fuel for speed boosts. It took some figuring out, but you can also do combos while grinding and mid-air to get extra speed and score. That was more useful than I imagined in places where I would run out to juice midway and upwards climb. Now on to the not so great changes. The added combat system felt a bit half-baked. It was a bit clunky and only required the player to ram into and spray fallen foes. You might hear it being mentioned in other videos too, but the grinding is a bit too sticky now. In the first game, the hitboxes for objects you can grind on felt almost too small. It would be tricky landing on them. Here, however, they feel like they're heavily magnetic. Quite often I wouldn't want to grind anywhere, but my character would just start doing it, and at that point it's very tricky getting off, especially in a tighter space when you want to turn around completely. It would just fling me quite far away. The camera felt like a straight up downgrade. If I'm not wrong, the original Xbox controller already had 2 analog sticks, right? Well, for some reason you cannot use the right one to move the camera freely. Or you kind of can, but only when standing still in place, and it would go into first person mode, and also it would keep going back to completely horizontal position, so it would be a nightmare trying to look up and down. There is a button to center the camera in the direction the character is facing, but that's suboptimal. Presentation wise, I wasn't too hot about the sequel. Sure, the models have higher fidelity, the levels are more detailed, but the original felt like it just had a bit more oomph stylistically. The super saturated colors of the original were dialed down a bit in the future. The soundtrack also felt a bit less catchy, since only the minority of the tracks were composed by my beloved Hideki Naganuma of the original Jet Set. It's just not quite the same. Although there are some tracks that indeed do fuck, like the main menu theme. The default garage theme, or birthday cake. Perkunas protect me from aisle 10 though. The sewers were one of the most infuriating levels where I had gotten stuck quite badly, and what felt like just the cringiest song kept playing there again and again and again. I have PTSD from it. But overall, it's still a good package. I might say it's not quite filling the shoes of its predecessor, but it doesn't need to, in order to still be several steps ahead of a lot of other games. I also thought that with the eclectic music and the cartoony visuals, a crossover between Jet Set Radio and Gorillaz would be the most natural thing. They're living in the same universe in my head from now on. There is an aspect that is a wall head above in Jet Set Radio Future, the Endgame. I told how infuriated I was about not being able to collect the extra characters in the original. Well, here I can freely continue the game after the final boss encounter, and I actually found it quite satisfying and addictive. After completing some specific challenges in a district and collecting all the graffiti souls, which is quite tricky by itself, you unlock test run challenges for the corresponding district. Those include flag collecting races, timed checkpoint races, timed graffiti runs, and timed stunt runs where you had to get the highest score possible. While these challenges are the hardest bit of the game, the gameplay in this game actually felt satisfying enough for me to want to struggle through them in order to unlock some of my favorite characters after completing all the challenges with jet rating. And I felt like I had gotten quite a bit better at the game doing them too, being forced to utilize tricks that I didn't need much at all to complete the main story. While I'm at it, I guess I can also mention Jet Set Radio Evolution. There was this one proof of concept video for a possible new game in the series that was unfortunately scrapped. I guess it looked cool from what little was presented. I really liked how the environment looked, but I sorta wanted the characters to retain those flatter, more cartoon shaders of the previous games, instead of going for a more three-dimensional look. It might be good in action though, I don't know, I can only speculate. I'm also seeing cool things about a fan remake of Jet Set Radio Future. It is being remade for PC in the Unity engine under the name of Jet Set Radio Future Multiplayer. It's still not completely finished, but it promises to have the entire cast of both Jet Set Radio's characters and then some, possibly more levels, eventually. I don't want to talk out of my butt too much as I haven't tried the game yet, but it looks very intriguing. I might have to eventually. I just hope it doesn't get taken down for using the IP, even if without generating any profit. This sort of thing is reminding me of a new format I want to do about abandoned games and their fates. Anyway, Jet Set Radio FÜCKS. The games were far from perfect. They would piss me off greatly, actually. But there's just something about them. The visuals, the sound, the feel, that just keeps me thinking about them. It gets away with its flaws as a game by being a damn strong statement in punk spirit, rebelling against conformity using unparalleled style. I completely understand the cult following of it now, and I guess I'm a part of it now. I wish there was more of this goodness, and I hope that the upcoming spiritual successor Bomb Rush Cyberpunk doesn't suck, but also fuck. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I shed some light on the series, and if you were already familiar, that I didn't regurgitate too much of what has already been said by others. See you in another video.